Hi, everyone. Shadow Governor Voss here. I wanted to start this episode off after the fact. We've already recorded. This is the day before we post it. And I'm editing the podcast, and the audio for Justin is just not up to snuff. Seemed to be some kind of glitch with our recording software where my audio was perfectly fine and his audio just wasn't picking up. And you actually hear his audio through my microphone. So I just wanted to say before we start, I apologize. This is hopefully a one-off, but again, I think this just kind of goes to show that it's just the two of us. We do everything. No producer, no staff or anything. Just us two, just doing this in a basement. So just bear with us for this episode. I know I hate it. I hate putting out subpar quality stuff, but I hope you can all bear with me and enjoy the rest of the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the New Fashion Conservatives podcast. I'm your host, Justin Phillips, and with me, as always, the legendary, the incomparable Shadow Governor Voss.
Robin Voss's strongest soldier.
And we've got a jam-packed show for you today. A lot happened this week in the legislature that you may not have heard about, and we're going to break those things down for you. Governor Evers issued some vetoes, sports gambling legislation had a hearing, and the fallout from Jill Underley's DPI cover-up rolls on. But first, we got to talk about the recent elections in Virginia, New Jersey, and New York City, and what that could mean for Wisconsin. So, Shadow Gov, is this blue states just doing blue things? Is this a sign of a tough cycle for the GOP? Where are you at with what happened on Tuesday?
And, I'm going to just go out on a limb and say it's both. And I know that doesn't exactly make anybody super happy about doing a both sides thing, but they are blue states. I know that there were some trends, of course, in 2024, that New Jersey might be a little bit of a toss-up, a little bit of a swing state, and I still think it may trend in that direction, but, just because it's a minor setback doesn't mean that they aren't, or that New Jersey isn't like a swing state going forward, but it was a little bit of a heat check, and, the Democrats in off-year, elections, well, I guess for New Jersey, and Virginia, these aren't off year for them. This is their normal, governor races. So I'm not totally surprised, but I think that there was, I was very real about Virginia. I was pretty confident that we were going to lose Virginia. New Jersey, I had a little bit of hope that, Jack Citarelli, who just looks like he should be out of The Sopranos. Mm-hmm. Also, The Sopranos house had a Jack Citarelli sign outside.
Yeah.
Some child from election Twitter, drove by the house and confirmed it. And so that was iconic. But losing by 13,
Sure.
A little bit of a, pouring cold water on you. But I think one of the bigger takeaways from the night is the fact that Jason Miyares lost to the text message killer, as I like to call him. But I can't even remember his name. Jay Jones, that's right. And I just think that is frankly appalling. And I would hope that in any other decade other than the 2025 year that we're living in, anybody that says that stuff would lose. Republican, Democrat,
I would hope
you would lose.
In any state that's closer than Virginia, that person would lose.
I mean, even in a D plus, I think I would hope that in a decade that we're not so balkanized. I mean, even 2000, if a governor candidate lost or said something like that in a D plus 15 state, I would hope that person would lose. Now, clearly that person, Jay Jones, did not lose. Now, there was a pretty significant gap between the top of the ticket and Jay Jones, so it definitely hurt him a ton. So I think there's two things. I think Winsome Sears dragged the ticket down and probably drag Jason Miyares down just enough to keep him below the line.
So I heard from several people who aren't just election Twitter talking heads, people who are in the know. Winsome Sears was not a great candidate, and I think you look at this cycle. I mean, Virginia we know is weird. One term for a governor. I think Glenn Youngkin probably could have won and held on, but the Democrats for several decades now have tried to say that what happens in Virginia and New Jersey is this harbinger of things to come. And sometimes that's true. Sometimes it's not. Republicans won the governorship in 2009 in Virginia and New Jersey. And you had a massive red wave 2010. Democrats win the governorship back in Virginia in 13. 14 was a large wave. So it's not a 1-to-1. Virginia is a state that is trending blue because of DC, because of the suburbs, because of federal workers, which I think is part of the reason why the government shutdown has lasted as long as it has, is that the Democrats use the government shutdown and no King's rallies as GOTV.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And
they have no incentive to open the government right now.
Right.
So why not just drag it out, and they get the whole SNAP benefits, SNAP apocalypse outrage as well.
Yeah.
I think it was a lot of things, and plus obviously some Trump backlash as well. It all culminates in a pretty good night for them.
Yeah.
So I mean, I also don't think that we can use 2010, 2012, 2014. I don't even think we can use like 2018 metrics as to what we're going to look like in 2026. I just think that we are the last between 2020 and today. It has changed so much, the trends, as well as, I mean, even there are voters from 2018 that, I feel like after 2016, a lot of those Trump voters that maybe voted for him initially, didn't really vote for him again. Or we hear people that didn't vote for Trump in 2016 or 2020, but voted for him in 2024. Yeah. So I just think the coalition has changed so much. And then we take into account, are those people actually going to show up? Are those the low prop voters? Are those extra voters that Donald Trump got out in northern Wisconsin going to also show up in 2026 for the midterms? Who knows? So I am hesitant to say one thing or another. I do know, though, the true North Star that always seems to be correct is, it's the economy, stupid.
Yep.
And so we'll have to see. That'll affect Wisconsin, the governor's race, a ton.
Yeah. And
it sucks that we're kind of waiting and hoping that the federal government can get the economy's act together a little bit and jumpstart some success.
So a lot to comment on there. And the first thing I would say is my understanding from what I have heard from other interviews, members of Congress and such, that a lot of the big, beautiful bill enactments will probably hit towards Q1 and Q2 of next year. So that should jumpstart the economy, which seems a bit sluggish right now based on metrics. And you're right. I think some of the things I want to talk about, I don't want to overread the tea leaves and try to decipher the signal from the noise on this, but we know things like Hispanic voters didn't show up for when Trump wasn't on the ballot. They didn't gravitate towards the GOP the same way Gen Z didn't gravitate to the GOP the same way they did when Trump was on the ballot. Gender gap remains high. I think the Dems are going to take some of the wrong things away from this, and that they're going to say that the ICE raids have offended many demographics, and it's a critical issue. Like you just said, mega low prop voters don't show up in blue states, and we need to make sure we message to them this next cycle coming up. And I think GOP messaging going forward needs to do a better job of communicating the bumper sticker message. The Democrats have always done this very well. Like, their entire message can fit on a bumper sticker. And I think that's because it's low IQ. But Republicans have to explain things. That's been a struggle. I recall back to 2011 during the recalls, the one thing that people started to harp on Republican candidates for was to say it's working. That Act 10 was working. We're seeing the results. And we saw them fairly quickly in communities that were implementing, the Act 10 reforms that happened. And that changed the game. All those two words, it's working.
Well, the best argument is success. And looking forward to 2026, if the economy is roaring, or if it's at least better than it is now, we have a fighting chance.
Yeah.
Not to get existential or anything, but just looking at 2026, if we lose the House, let's just say Trump gets impeached day one.
Absolutely.
Pete Hegseth, Kristi Noem.
They'll go for all of them.
They will go all down the line. There is nothing holding them back. They will impeach everybody. They will investigate everybody. The witch hunts that we thought were bad in 2020 or 2019 or whatever, or after the fact with January 6th and such, it's going to get much, 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 much worse.
Yeah.
And Trump, I think, kind of realizes, and I think there's also a lot of people that realize that we got a year left.
Yeah.
Which is a lot of time.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it is not a lot of time.
Yep.
So
it means we got to do a lot in the next calendar year.
Which means, this is why Trump kind of keeps on talking about nuking the filibuster.
Yeah.
Which, again, I know makes everybody kind of...
I'm a hard no. I am.
Makes the hair on everyone's neck stand up a little bit. But, I really go back and forth on it, because part of me says, if you're going to nuke the filibuster, do it. You got to do everything. You have to go balls to the wall. You have to pass everything, every conservative red meat thing that you've ever thought of. My thing is, I don't think they would do that. I think that there are enough people in the Republican caucus that A, wouldn't want to nuke the filibuster,
right,
and B, even if they did nuke it, they would hold up good stuff. Like, in a way, the filibuster is kind of like a fig leaf, where some more conservative things that some members might not like, it's kind of an excuse. Like, oh, well, we can't do it because, well, the filibuster.
The frustration with both parties when they are in power, one for the Republicans, is they get in their own way and they don't do what they want to do because someone holds things up for some little insignificant reason.
And the Republican Party is a pretty broad coalition, honestly, at this point.
And the Democrats, the other side, is when they get in power, they never do what they can't do what they promise to do because they can't build the coalitions to get it done.
Well, I guess both parties have, they have the same problem.
It's the same problem, just a different, angle to get to it. But I did want to mention, though, I think we talk a little bit about messaging. I think there's ways to tap into the coalitions that Trump had built. Like you think about the Maha demo, you talk about highlighting those wins, about removing food dyes and seed oils, which itself could be a little bit risky because you kind of have to own everything that RFK's done, and maybe that's not great. But you think about the fact that the last election, Donald Trump's campaign saw that they needed to go hard after male voters. And I think if you're, a statewide campaign, and so, you have a media consultant that's going to tell you, well, we need to buy on, Milwaukee, CBS, NBC, Fox, and WISN. That's wrong. You got to be advertising UFC, sports, live events, wrestling. Pick them all. You got to go after them where they are. We remember we kind of chatted with David Farnham about this. There's a lot of racetracks in Wisconsin. Partner with AFP or have AFP Turning Point. Go stand at the racetrack entrances on Saturday and Friday nights, holding with someone with a sign and a QR code that says "Register to vote," and here's why you should vote for, Tom Tiffany, Josh Showman, or your candidate. So I think those strategies will work. And the other strategy that I've never really seen repeated, but the Obama team did. And this was in 12, I think. They cracked the code thinking that people who didn't watch the debates weren't watching because they weren't disinterested. It was because they had kids and their kids occupied the television while the debate was going on. It was bath time. It was bedtime routine. So what they did was they would run ads the next morning with the softest messages that Obama was doing in his race on kids' networks. And it resonated with those parents. Those parents saw that and they tied to it. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to replicate some of the success of previous presidential campaigns for state candidates to be successful, to get those low prop mega voters, Maha women come back into the fold. You can even talk about the fact maybe you should be running Spanish language ads. Safer communities, safer streets, better schools, better jobs. Like, that's an easy message for a lot that would resonate with a lot of communities, and you got to hit them in the way they are. But I do want to say, I think the Dems are going to take the wrong thing away from the New Jersey, and specifically the New York City election. And that you have Mamdani winning as a communist.
Yeah, I mean, communist, yes. Third world advocate, yes. Quite literally just wants to take the things that have been created by Americans and give it to basically people that have just showed up. There was some crazy stat about people that have been in the United States for longer than 5 years supported Cuomo over Mamdani. If they'd been here for less than 5 years
and lived in like New York City, people who had lived in and been in America for a long time were supporting Cuomo. And as the less amount of time you've been in the country, you
supported Mamdani.
And
like under 50 or under 5 years, it was like 80% from like,
it was
maybe demographics are destiny, and that's just the whole thing. And when you look at, not that I followed Mamdani's campaign with every step, but I did see a couple pictures where they had like Africans for Mamdani. You know, Republican or like Wisconsin, you have like the farmers, police, sportsmen for so and so.
Veterans,
But when you're in New York, it's like Ugandans for Mamdani, or Uzbekistan's, or you know, list your country, which is a little scary in my part. But the one thing I wanted to mention, because you were talking about strategies to implement, and first of all, I agree. I think the Democrats are going to take the wrong lesson from 2024 as well as this election. But I don't care who you are. I think Mamdani's campaign, first of all, is just run well.
Sure.
And on top of that, I'm also, maybe it's me just being online, and probably a little bit of that too. I love his media approach. I think it's fresh, and it kind of, I don't want to say it's a Glenn Youngkin, because I always look at Glenn Youngkin's campaign as like kind of like a model for other Republicans to go for. But there's something about Mamdani when he's extremely genuine. I mean, he kind of just says, I mean, not that to say he doesn't lie, but like he certainly tries his best, and I think it comes off as very genuine. And I think the videos just kind of personalize him a lot, and he does a ton of it. And he was doing it before he even ran for mayor, when he was just an assembly person. So I just think, you know, I saw on Twitter there was a photographer as well as the videographer were like sharing stuff from the campaign, and it's kind of hard to not like someone when they're portrayed kind of like in like a movie, with storytelling. And you look at Hollywood and you realize how much cultural impact like Hollywood and movies have. And if you can infuse that with politics, I just think there's a ton of potential.
Yeah.
And I appreciate what Eric Hovde did with his comms team and with his digital outfit that he hired to do his comms, which there was a little bit of that. There was a little bit of that. I would love to lean into it even more. I know hiring a full-time videographer, cinematographer, photographer is a lot of work, but I wholly believe in that if people can, see a story and kind of latch onto it and with a person and maybe be inspired by that person, instead of just, and I'm not saying you can't have your canned, stump speech, you have to do that, but I just think there's a ton of potential. And so instead of, I know a lot of Republicans are probably going to say, oh, Mamdani, get him out of here. Just horrible communist, he's the worst.
Right.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, they said the same thing about Obama, and Obama had that same kind of storytelling.
Yeah,
same
I just think
charisma.
Take what they have done. Now, I know their demographic and what they are marketing to is much different than what we are, but I wholly believe that the storytelling aspect of these campaigns, if we can lean into that, there's just a ton of potential.
I think there is.
So
I think you're right, but I think the Dems are going to take the wrong thing away, and they'll take it away from Jay Jones winning in Virginia. I mean, I give Francesca Hong 3 or 4 months before she's saying, we probably should kill at least one Republican next cycle.
I think she's smarter than that. I mean, I think she's smarter than that.
Because then what will happen is Kelda will have to leak her own text messages saying, well, I was in favor of killing Republicans first.
But in a state like Wisconsin that is so close.
I know, I'm teasing.
I know. But even a point or two. I mean, Jay Jones did get hurt by that messaging.
Yeah.
By that text message, the problem was they just had such a lead.
No, but what they'll do,
still won.
What they'll do is lean heavily into we need to seize the means of production, and all of the communist, true communist level messaging. And I think Republicans will do the wrong thing and start blaming Mamdani for everything. But his policies won't be enacted, won't probably be impactful. We would be very lucky as conservatives running for election in 2026 if his policies enacted immediately did something significantly negative to New York. That being said, I think you'll see Francesca, Kelda, and of course Mandela, Jesse Barnes, who hasn't announced yet, but we know he's running.
He's gonna run.
They're going to lean heavily to the far left, and that's going to take the wrong message, because you look at the candidates that were elected statewide in New Jersey, in Virginia, they were milquetoast, boring, Wonder Bread soaked in Chablis women pretending to be moderates, but not being avowed terrorist communists like Mamdani. So that gets me to my big point, which is Missy Hughes is arguably the most dangerous Democrat in a general election based off those elections. To a lesser extent, Sarah Russell Rodriguez, because she is also pretty boring. And
I think Sarah's a little bit more dangerous. Mm-hmm. I just think she can toe the line between moderate and left. I think Missy's just too moderate.
Missy can do I can speak Republican because I know business. And she can play the boring non-politician candidate to a T.
Mm-hmm.
But she has to wrestle with getting through a primary where you are trying to court a Mamdani level base of voters. And that's going to be it's tough. I don't think she can make it through the primary, but if she does, I think she's the most dangerous.
Yeah, pretty much. And I'm sure Democrats said Bill Berrien was the scariest.
On paper.
Yeah, on paper.
On paper, 100%. Mm-hmm. 100%. Because I think...
kind of forgot Bill Berrien ran, too.
Well, shout out to Eric Brooks, who made a funny post the other day on X about the Milwaukee County Zoo coming up with a $22 million rhino exhibit and putting Bill Berrien's face, and I responded with the Simpson gif of stop, he's already dead.
GIF.
Yeah, okay, fine.
GIF.
That's my age thing. But ultimately, I do want to say I do not give a shit about what happens to New York City.
I don't. See, I do.
No.
I do. I am not of the opinion, and then we should move on.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily know what to do because it probably is gone, and it is gone. But I just don't like the idea of just surrendering a once great American city, still the biggest city in the United States, to just utter depravity. There's just something like, as an American, I'm just like, it's disappointing that we have to just allow this autonomous zone of just horrible ideas, and it'll probably get only worse, and an utter multicultural disaster waiting to happen, and it's only going to get worse. So I don't like the fundamental, and I especially don't like the opinions that people say when, people will see that and then they'll vote differently. It's like, guys, stop.
So that was going to be my quote. So George Will, who I think is incredibly intelligent for being a never Trumper, It's fine. He's one of the few that I still read and listen to. Says he wanted Mamdani to win for the exact same reason you just said, is that he said, I think every 20 years or so we need a conspicuous, confined experiment with socialism so we can crack it up again. And New York has gone through these cycles. The city was absolute shit in the 70s. Like, Times Square was unwalkable. 80s was a little bit better. But you got into the Giuliani 90s and early 2000s, and it was a thriving city. But you would have thought that the voters of New York would have rejected this now with de Blasio, Eric Adams being terrible mayors. Let them have, the voters have made their choice and they must be punished for it.
Yes, you do get the government that you vote for. Like 100%, even in the United States, like as for president, like when we got Biden, like we deserved it. I mean, that's what people voted for.
Maybe it'll be so bad they'll turn it around. They'll reject it later. Maybe it'll get worse, and you'll see major corporations moving to Dallas and Houston and Atlanta.
Perhaps. But these people, like, you have to realize that in New York, the people that left during COVID, those are probably most of your conservatives or common sense people.
Yeah.
That I've had enough.
And they're going to do it again.
So who's left in New York? It's people from the third world
and
insufferable white liberals that hate themselves and think
doctorates
and think that voting for some recent American citizens,
some tan socialists,
is the way forward. And so it's only going to get worse. Like, come on, Brandon Johnson's a socialist in Chicago. Lori Lightfoot was horrible. I mean, she's Beetlejuice, but she was just stupid. I mean, she wasn't very effective. It also didn't help that she looked ridiculous to begin with. So people saw that.
And Brandon Johnson is very stupid, but very entitled.
But Brandon Johnson's worse.
Oh,
much worse.
Yeah.
They could have voted for, I don't even remember, I think it was Paul, started maybe with the last name with like a V or something. But he was like I think with the public schools, but he wasn't endorsed by the unions.
Yeah.
And so then they elect Brandon Johnson, he is a, I don't like saying, oh, he's a racist. Like, I don't necessarily like saying that, but dude has got some pent up anger racially against certain people. It feels like, based off of his comments. So, in Chicago will continue to do that.
Yep.
And I just can think New York will
continue to fail.
And New York will continue to do the same thing. These people don't learn. So gosh, if I was the president, hey, Abraham Lincoln did things during the Civil War to keep the Union together. So,
well,
there's precedent.
So this week, there was the first candidate forum that featured 4 Democrats and Josh Schoeman at the Wisconsin Technology Council's annual conference.
Mm-hmm.
And I caught some of it, read a lot of the clips, got a lot of the analysis, and what it really showed to me was that the Democrats are really the not ready for primetime players right now.
Still early,
but Royce and Frankie went all in on progressivism. They hit all of their anti-Trump buzzwords, fascism, authoritarianism, blah blah blah. They figured ways to squeeze those in. But it was also very clear to me that candidates on both sides are completely in the dark, just groping for a message on data centers. There were, everyone kind of had we need local control. We need to talk about the environmental regulation. Josh Schoeman, I think, was the one that had a good thing. Is this should be the catalyst to bring back nuclear power in the state.
Oh yeah,
the only power that can provide what data centers need, still provide electricity and to regular Wisconsinites and not necessarily jack up rates. Said that. Crowley stressed balancing innovation with environmental protections, stuff like that. So the one thing that did strike out was there was a question on broadband. And I think, personally, broadband is a very tired topic because I think there is a solution staring in the face of everyone, and that's frankly you could take the money that we've spent trying to get that last mile or whatever for rural Wisconsinites, subsidize their Starlink for a decade,
Mm-hmm.
and that is the solution. Period. End of discussion. But what really stood out to me was not how they answered it, but what they actually said. And so Frankie Hong said, you know what we should do for broadband is legalize weed.
Just smoke a whole lot of dope.
Yep.
And that'll pay for all the internet in the world.
Yes. So,
which honestly, it must be so nice being a liberal.
It's so you must.
Gosh,
it's
easy.
It's so easy.
It's like, and she got an applause line for that too.
Yeah.
What's your solution for broadband? Oh, just smoke a lot of weed. Oh, bravo.
And seal claps from the audience.
Bravo.
Yeah.
I mean, must be incredible. Meanwhile, myself, I give some detailed policy answer that no one will understand.
Yeah. And it's so wild that Frankie is still hanging on to this idea that weed will be this financial panacea for Wisconsin. I mean, we might gain some tax revenue, but we know that states that have adopted marijuana legalization are no longer the cannabis travel destinations that they were. Like, no one really flies to Denver to smoke weed anymore. And I think we know that Colorado's marijuana tax revenue has dropped precipitously since it was enacted. So you might see that initial bump in Wisconsin. I think it'll kind of settle back in. And if you consider the fact that Wisconsin has $100 billion budget,
mm-hmm.
like 50 to 100 million really isn't a whole lot of money, and certainly not something that we should be spending on broadband. But of course, Frankie's going to go to the next group that has this and say, you know what, will fix your issue? Marijuana legalization. That money is going to be spent 17 different ways by Frankie before the end of the campaign, telling all these groups that, you know what schools need? Marijuana.
Well,
you know what unions need? Marijuana.
Well, I'm confused where I guess it wouldn't be the worst place to use the money. I remember, this seems like an eternity ago, when Colorado legalized, they didn't want to give the money to schools because it felt dirty.
Yes.
We're so beyond that now.
Mm-hmm.
But I would just be worried, if that were to become a reality, they would be funding reoccurring investments with a fund that's probably going to be pretty fluctuate. Yeah. I mean, maybe it'll be consistent, but when Colorado first legalized, it was hundreds of millions of dollars. They put it into the education budget, and then it started decreasing, and then they had to cut back the education budget because it wasn't a consistent funding source. Mm-hmm. And I just don't think, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's just a ton of potheads in Wisconsin, but I just don't necessarily see, well, I guess I shouldn't make that comparison that all SNAP people smoke weed, but there's 700,000 people on SNAP. I guess a lot of them are kids too, but who knows? But it's just tiresome that a liberal's answer for how do we fund something and we'll just legalize.
Kelda must have missed a talking point earlier, because in this forum, she added that abortion rights and tax reform are ways to fund infrastructure as well. Just going to let that hang out there. I'm not even going to comment on the idiocy.
Yeah, I'm just going to punch out on that one.
She must have realized that they were 75% of the way through the forum, and she didn't get away to shoehorn adding abortion rights into a talking point. So she did a hard pivot and squeezed it in there.
Well, hey, come on, politicians got to politic.
Yeah, but there were a lot of things happening in the Capitol this week that I think it's important to talk about. I hope listeners come to this show. They like our interviews. If you want to go back, check out our interviews with Scott Fitzgerald, David Barnum, Josh Shellman. They like coming here for a couple of laughs because we are always talking about some fun articles. But I hope they come for the legislative update that maybe they miss, maybe it doesn't get covered. One of the ones that came out recently that stood out to me was Wisconsin sports gambling bill had a hearing, and there seems to be a pretty big disconnect between the two major players involved. So you have the tribes who would own the land that the servers would be on if we were to allow sports books
So dumb.
in Wisconsin.
So
and
dumb.
then you have organizations like Bet365, BetMGM, FanDuel, DraftKings, the sports books would then, I guess, rent or
lease it. Yeah.
lease those servers and would kick 60% of the revenue generated to the tribes, which again gives the tribes a stronger monopoly that they already have on gaming.
It's still a monopoly. Yeah.
Yeah. And during this hearing, the Sports Betting Alliance, which is kind of the groups we talked about, said that they were not capable of running this, and they would not support this bill because they can't operate under the 60-40 split.
Which means they just want a bigger split.
Yes.
Which I guess, I mean, if you're them too, I would probably want a bigger split too, honestly. But I really, there's so many things wrong with this personally. And, first of all, I've made my opinions pretty clear on this, that I don't like how much control that the tribes have. Like, if I can't have a total ban on gambling because it's a degenerate idol, anything can be an idol, but this one's a pretty big. Like, go to Potawatomi, look at the people there. Do you think that they should be gambling?
Mm-hmm.
Like, a lot of them don't look like they should be gambling.
Yeah.
This isn't Vegas where you see a bunch of high rollers. These are people that probably live in paycheck to paycheck, or they're gambling their Social Security. But that's a whole nother aside. Well, right now, the predictions market kind of, operates in the gray area right now. So this is an attempt to kind of legalize partially, kind of a half measure. So I kind of agree on the principle of saying, okay, well, you don't want to have this kind of illegal kind of gray area. So, okay, maybe we do something a little bit closer to kind of close the loop on that legality. That's one side. The other side, of course, is, well, I hate gambling, ban it all. Go back to the original Constitution. That'd be awesome. And then there's the whole thing with, like, if we're going to have gambling, though, I want it democratized. I don't necessarily want the tribes having a monopoly on all this.
The tribal monopoly on gambling has always been a frustration point with me. Now I have a lot of frustration with the tribes. In fact, I could go back as far as the walleye spearing that was allowed on lakes decades ago.
Or the Lac de Flambeau tribe blocking resident roads that they've had access to just because, and then extorted them for money.
Yeah, I mean, the tribes have rarely been honest brokers.
So I just don't trust it.
Exactly.
I've never trusted it. So part of me is like, okay, well, if it's already legal, if it's gonna go in that direction, let's make it democratized. So, like, I kind of agree. Like, if the tribes, this just strengthens the monopoly even more. Now, 60-40, I guess, that's still a decent split, but they, I don't know if you can't get much better than that.
Florida has a 50-50.
Okay.
So it is, those even splits are out there. And I know, like, DraftKings, Bet365 is going to say that a 60-40 model won't allow us to make revenue.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if we have to pay 60 cents on every dollar to tribes just for the blessing to operate, getting only 40 cents on the dollar is not enough for them. That's what they're going to say.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a good point to be made. 50-50 seems like an okay split if it's working in other states.
And there's another argument to be made that the DraftKings thing, like, that money goes in the app, gets spent, and it doesn't get spent in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Whereas the money through the tribes will be here. Now you could make the argument that it's just going to the tribes. It's not like this isn't not generating some local economy or something. I mean, it is.
In
but
fact, I think when you talk about money that casinos generate for the local economy, it is not on the same scale that private business is. Like, it doesn't have those multipliers. A lot of that money from casino stays in the casino. It doesn't. You don't have that outgrowth of jobs that a private sector, like a large business, would bring to a community. So, there's not a whole lot of good from casinos. There's not a whole lot of good.
It's just a whole lot of gray, muddy, mucky There's not super clear advantages. There's a lot of problems, and I wish that we weren't in this situation. But trying to live in reality, so we'll see.
And on top of this, of course, we still have the fact that the NBA players have been tanking games and betting on themselves and all these sort of things. I mean, I saw a suspicious one that James Harden had a over under of like 24 and a half assists or rebounds, some one statistic, and he had 23 at halftime and had 0 in the second half. So you tell me like he didn't know his betting lines. So that aside, talk about some other bills. One that was introduced that came out of the Capital Times report about the cases of teachers, their misconduct for sexual activities with children. It was found out in one of those hearings that grooming is not defined in Wisconsin statute. So sexual grooming of children is now under this bill would be a felony crime in Wisconsin. Proposal comes after State Superintendent Jill Underly came under scrutiny over how the state education department handles allegations of grooming and sexual misconduct by licensed school staff. And this is from Molly Beck, the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel actually took some time to write about this a couple weeks after, of course, the whole thing went down. So the bill was introduced by Amanda Nedweski, who has been just an absolute rock star. I don't know if you saw the video of her or the photo of her just bodying Jill Underly. Like, here's the bills I'm introducing since you don't have the decency to show up.
I'm sure she did it very nicely.
Yeah. Well,
but it was funny. Like,
yeah.
Hey, boy, Jill is taking a lot of arrows.
Yeah.
So what's one more?
She doesn't have the decency to do her homework and be prepared and even show up for things. Amanda's going to go right to her and put the bills in her face. And I think that's the right thing.
But there's no definition. So it's pretty hard to charge someone with a crime when you don't have a definition of what the crime is. Mm-hmm. So, and I think we talked about this a little bit last week where police have commonly charged these as disorderly conducts. But those are far, 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 far less powerful statutes, and they don't come with that many penalties. So when you make this classification, I'm sure there's a high-level felony associated with it. Mm-hmm. Essentially coaxing or leading a minor for the use of grooming them. And I know you not to use the word in the definition for the word, but we kind of all know what grooming is. But this kind of spells it out in plain language so that we can actually charge people with it.
If convicted, a person could face between 10 and 25 years in prison, depending on who the person is to the child.
Bye-bye.
And whether the child has disability, among other factors that would increase the penalties. Those convicted of grooming would be required to register with the Department of Corrections as a sex offender.
Thank you.
Yeah,
that's beautiful. I love the last part. Just you have to register as a sex offender, which is huge. Which would be huge. I mean, hopefully put some actual clamps on these people.
Unfortunately, the Venn diagram then of teachers and sexual predators or registered sexual predators is going to have overlap.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, good on Amanda Nedweski. This should be a no-brainer.
Like if you're Evers, you can't not sign this.
Yeah. But this also is part of another bad week for Jill Underly, who chose to no-show part of an audit committee here. So the Joint Audit Committee, for those who don't know, it's a legislative committee that directs the Audit Bureau to audit things.
Wow, groundbreaking.
Yeah. I mean, just want to make sure we're level setting for everyone. But she had another unexcused absence. And Jill, at this point, probably has the same attendance record of an MPS high school student.
Non-existent.
Yeah, so her staff's excuse was that she's an elected official and doesn't have to show up every time. Now,
well, she has to show up more than once.
Yeah.
To make that claim, but okay, go ahead.
So fun enough. Interestingly enough, and I found this out a while ago, but it's not known, in fact, by even that many staffers. Lawmakers have subpoena powers. And probably should use those subpoena powers to demand Jill's attendance moving forward, quite frankly.
Just to compel her?
Yes.
if she's feeling that she doesn't want to.
Stop using a fake award from your university as a reason to no-show the committee. So the audit committee this time showed that DPI is being overly punitive to school choice schools while giving failing public schools a free pass. The joint audit also directed the Legislative Audit Bureau to investigate teacher licenses and revocation policies. Did see DPI's deputy at the hearing, and he's a guy who, if you haven't seen the picture of him, looks like he's more qualified to give me tasting notes of an Imperial IPA than he is to be at the top of DPI's food chain.
He had a pretty mad mullet, though.
Yeah.
He had some business in the front.
And a wispy mustache.
Yeah. So, I mean, definitely an IPA, but the mullet was pretty based, not going to lie.
It's become clear through the audit committee, through the GOAT committee, and every other committee in between that DPI is an absolute fucking joke.
That I would probably put that as saying it lightly. This is like the worst. I mean, not that I have some extensive knowledge on education in the state over the course of the last 100 years, but this has got to be one of the bigger scandals in Wisconsin education and state government in a while. Like, and I said this last week, I believe, that she should resign, all politics aside. Mm-hmm. Like, it is that bad. And she got grilled in these committee hearings, and I don't know if the answers were totally sufficient. And now she has, and this is how you know things are bad, is she started to take some action.
Yeah,
already.
It was kind of the irony is they went into the budget hearing saying we don't have this was a while ago, saying
months ago,
we don't have the money to update all of these databases, and it's going to take staff time to do it. Now the fact is, staff at DPI they're not hourly, so this can be other duties as assigned, and it doesn't take a whole lot of time to put a bunch of names into a database. But I guess maybe if you lack any competency like Jill Underly does, then she's probably not hiring the best and brightest.
But they're starting to do stuff now.
Yeah, but they did it, even though they said before they didn't have the money. So now all of a sudden, magically, they're going to start doing this.
Well, the heat is on them, so they're like, okay, guys, we got to do something. So they've made some slight changes to their policies and trying to clean some stuff up, which, respect where it's given. They needed to do that. Mm-hmm. Now, there is a ton of other stuff that they need to do, and I'm sure that the audit that will come out of this will probably be very revealing in a couple of months. I'm sure that won't be done anytime soon. But it's another bad week for Jill. She at least showed up for part of the hearing, so she was at least able to answer some questions. But clearly, she can't handle the full gamut. They had to whisper away for the last part of the hearing. So probably made some excuse up why she couldn't do the entire thing. But this is again not going away. I'm sure there's going to be another story about this, and Jill has put Evers in a corner. Like he has to sign these grooming bills. I think he would probably sign them even if this didn't happen. Mm-hmm. But you have to feel like, as a governor, how do you not sign a bill protecting children from literal predators?
Yeah.
So I feel like you would have to do that.
I mean, that is an egregious, unforced political error that would land at the feet of whomever the next gubernatorial candidate is.
Yeah, there's just no way.
And
I have to say,
good on Josh Shobin and Tom Tiffany for making this a political issue, for making this part of their campaign. Needs to be done up until for the next 360 some days. But unsurprising, Frankie Hong chose to fall back into a defensive position for DPI for the simple partisanship reason. Like, she shares a D after her name with Jill, so she felt like she needed to defend her. But also, unironically, within the same 24-hour period, put out an X post saying that Republicans don't give a shit about you.
Yeah, I saw that.
And that's some real audacity to say, well, Republicans don't care about you, but I also don't care about the fact that there were there was sexual misconduct amongst public school teachers.
You know, I've tried to do this. I try not to be like a Democrat, which I know sounds stupid, but when Trump says something, and especially this was in the first term, Trump tweeting would drive an entire day's news cycle.
Yeah.
Now, Trump is not Francesca Hong, and Francesca Hong's not Trump. But if Franny's going to swear, like, I'm trying not to make it too big of a deal out of it.
It wasn't the swear that drew me to it.
But even that Republicans don't care about you. Like, I feel like I've heard some Republicans say basically the same thing. So I'm trying not, like, it's just another thing that she said where she had to swear, and her swear jar fills up very quickly compared to all the other candidates. So I'm trying not to overanalyze everything that she says, because I know she's going to probably say crazier things, to be viral, and I know that's what she's trying to go for. Probably is she needs to get that little viral moment where she can try to maybe jumpstart some extra fundraising, and it only takes one.
Sure.
That's kind of how Zoran came around. Is he had a viral moment, and then who's this guy?
Right.
And then every influencer and their mother jumped on board, and then again locked up the third world vote, and boom, the rest is history.
So there was another bill that had a hearing this week. Found this one from Wisconsin Public Radio, written by Corey Hess. Actually, says the WIAA pushes back on proposal to make organization follow public records and open meetings laws.
The WIAA is pretty much on the wrong side of every single issue. Yeah. It is almost hilarious to the point that they can have the wrong position on almost everything, and this just being another one of those cases.
Former Speaker of the Assembly John Gard put on a new hat this week as a cross-country coach who testified at the Senate education hearing that would force WIAA to comply with state public records and open meetings laws, because he says hundreds of coaches and kids realize that they have no input. They aren't valued, and there is a fear of retribution for speaking out against the WIAA. Now, I want to point out one thing in this. WIAA's executive director is Stephanie Hauser.
Mm-hmm.
Name shouldn't mean anything to anyone, but if you are a former Marquette basketball fan, you know the name Hauser. And one of the things that I find so ironic about this and so repugnantly hypocritical is the fact that WIAA has been sued countless times because students have, for some reason, moved school districts.
The transfer rules.
Things have been checked, boxes have been checked. And I get it. I get that you don't want to have a situation where kids are transferring to the really good sports team school that they play so they can play with the best. You don't want to have a stacked team. But Stephanie Hauser, I'm sure, shopped her sons around when they decided to transfer because they weren't getting the playing time or recognition that they thought they deserved, and were overtaken by other players on the Marquette basketball roster. So again, the hypocrisy to rule that some high school kid whose career is probably going to end in high school shouldn't be allowed to transfer when she herself saw the lack of playing time that her kids were getting and said, I need to find them a new school. Come on. It should be insulting. She is the worst face imaginable for a corrupt organization like the WIAA, which is on par with FIFA in terms of corruption. So want to thank Cindy Duco, who did author this bill. Says that even though the WIAA isn't a governmental organization, it has a de facto monopoly over Wisconsin student athletes.
Yeah, it is.
And I think that alone, because of the control they have over student athletes, and should make them responsible to taxpayers. You send your kids to school, they play on the school athletic team, that should count. Romaine Quinn says he gets more calls from constituents who are upset with WIAA rules than any other subject regarding education.
This is just an easy bill.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a good constituent bill. It's a good bill that, who's going to oppose it? The WIAA?
Yeah.
Okay, go for it.
Corrupt organization opposes
transparency. Yeah, wow. More news at 10. So, yeah, hopefully the bill, I'm assuming this will get passed. This has to be a pretty easy slam dunk.
It would be a failure of the legislature to not pass this bill.
Mm-hmm.
It would. I think the legislative session would. When we get to the end of the legislative session and we're handing out our grades to legislators and the session and successes, I would knock them down a grade level if they don't get this done.
Speaking of failures,
Yes.
we have a few of them.
Mm-hmm.
One of which, I love this story. It's one of my favorites. Evers giving money during the COVID years.
Yes.
He didn't just give it to, mom and pop, storefronts, trying to make payroll. But Evers was also giving money to just random organizations trying to build soccer stadiums.
Yes.
And as someone who likes soccer, I do enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
It's fun to play. I'm not saying I was any good, but it was fun. And it might be kind of a cool novelty, but is it the role of the governor to just kind of dole out federal money to just a random soccer stadium project that, as far as I know, is dead in the water?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was years ago. And here we have, now the project's gone nowhere in 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
So where does that money go? Do we just, this is just another, I don't want to turn this into a rant about federal money from COVID all over again, but Lucas Weber had a good post about this.
Mm-hmm.
He said Governor Evers first tried to get an earmark for this project for $9.3 million. The legislature said no. So Governor Evers gave them $9.3 million anyway from his magical pot of federal money. Now the project has gone nowhere in 3 years. Where is the money? Why is nobody answering questions on this? Insane. And it is quite insane. There was a Fox 6 article which said brand new stadium was supposed to open next year, but the site remains empty. Fox News filed an open records request to see how, if at all, the project was advancing. So I think we all need to know, where does that money actually go?
Yep.
We say, it's easy to say, $9.3 million for a brand new soccer stadium that will supercharge the local economy and bring in new businesses and create extra development in the area. And what? The $9.3 million just gets thrown into an abyss?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it collecting interest somewhere? There's just so many questions, and this, again, goes to show that the unaccountable federal money that was given to governors during COVID has been an utter disaster. First of all that money that was sent out supercharged inflation, all that government spending. And then we just have people like Tony who are still sitting on money right now, just frivolously spending it left and right. I would have rather him just give us a rebate, honestly. But no, he had to use his personal slush fund for re-election, and I'm sure he's going to sprinkle some more for his preferred candidate here for the next primary.
This is a great question for Pam Bondi. Is that a viable use of COVID money? But the one thing I'm like you. I had kind of high hopes for this. The area that the soccer stadium was supposed to go is pretty blighted.
Mm-hmm.
It's right on the southeastern edge-ish of Marquette University. I had high hopes because I thought the university could use it. Marquette did say that at least their soccer and lacrosse teams would move to the stadium whenever it's completed.
Because right now they have the dome, right?
Yeah. It's kind of the valley is kind of a gross.
Well, yeah, because you're right next to that big industrial park, but then you got Pato, which is disgusting, dirty, and you should never go there.
Truly, it's a gross area. There's actually I don't know if it's meat slaughtering. There's a lot of stuff that goes on in the.
I kind of like the industrial aspect of it, but it doesn't make for a great venue for a facility for sports.
I mean, I had
college.
My pipe dream that Marquette would build up to a FCS level football team was sitting right there. You've got Marquette using it. Same thing. I think Milwaukee is the right size for a pro soccer team of the caliber that was going to be there. Looks nice. Millennials like doing things. People like watching sports. it all kind of aligned. It shouldn't have needed government money. It shouldn't have used COVID government money. And now we are wondering where that 9.3 million goes to, because it's not like they broke ground and
then they got
something
money.
fell through. But
yeah,
this is a vacant plot of land.
But nothing has happened.
Exactly. So,
and who knows? In the fact is, the news has to do an open records request to even determine if anything has been done.
So the byline on the Fox 6 news story is Sam Kramer, who did a flagrant piece of journalism, and hope Fox and Sam stay with it. But Governor Evers also did a little traveling right now. And I noticed this when I was looking at some of our demographics and people who are listening to our pod. And, we love our American listeners. We also love our Canadian listeners, Belgian listeners, Australian listeners that we have a couple of. And we also have a Brazilian.
I don't know how we have those worldwide listeners.
We had a listener from Brazil, at least one. And I'm wondering, maybe that was someone from Tony Evers' political, government office, or maybe Tony himself was listening to his pod when he headed down to Brazil to attend a climate change summit with other governors, mayors, and such.
So and he's the co-chair of this committee.
This comes from the Center Square and Just the News. In the midst of the ongoing government shutdown, a number of Democrat governors, mayors, and other officials are flying to Brazil for a climate change conference. U.S. Climate Alliance co-chair and Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers is part of leading the delegation gathering in Brazil, who also declared a state of emergency over the government shutdown. So this article kind of calls out the fact that the governor's traveling while the shutdown is going on, but I just was amused by the fact that he is still clinging on to climate change as a grave threat facing the world, because I don't know if you saw this, Bill Gates just came out and said it's not a big deal. Now, of course,
it's hilarious
because Microsoft has data centers
and they need to use a lot of power, a lot of energy to do so. And I'm sorry, as much as you might like windmills, they don't actually generate that much electricity. You kind of need the big boys to power these data centers, but let's not sugarcoat it. Tony didn't go to Brazil for the climate change. He went to Brazil because he wanted to go to Brazil.
And maybe get a butt lift.
Or he just wants a free vacation. I mean, the dude's in his 70s. He's not running for re-election. Oh, look, a climate change thing that I also happen to be a co-chair of. Free vacation.
Does Brazil have good ice cream?
No, but it's Brazil and it's warmer than it is right now in Wisconsin. So, I mean, besides, I've never been south of the Caribbean, so I've never been there. I think it'd be kind of cool to go.
That's exactly why he looked at it. This would be fun.
Well, he's probably not paying for it. It's probably
taxpayer funded.
Yeah, it's probably taxpayer funded. So, he's there in his official capacity. So, I'm sure it's a free vacation for him and his wife. I don't blame him, to be honest. I would probably do the same thing. But needless to say, climate change is still a hoax. But actually, sorry. It's misinterpreted. It's not a hoax. Climate change is quote unquote real, but not in the way that the Dems say it is real. Like the climate does change over time, just not the way they think it is. But that's an aside.
So we should get to a little bit of candy right about now. Want to just talk for a minute about Waukesha Pints politics. I got an opportunity to attend on Wednesday. It was good to see friend of the show, David Varnum, driving all the way from Lancaster to Waukesha to shake hands with,
God bless him,
50, 75 Waukesha Republicans. Glad he was there. We heard from Scott Allen, who truly needs to be the next mayor of Waukesha. The opponent he has in that race is just the worst.
She is the quintessential white liberal wine mom, but a little bit worse.
Yeah. She is the quintessential, awful, deranged, woke white woman. Just
somewhere there's wine involved, though, as well.
Also heard from Maria Lazar, And Maria sounded very different from her introductory video that we were critical of. Uh, Her current messaging sounds much better. I think she saw the failed Dan Kelly playbook and realized it's not going to work this time. Didn't work before. Just need to change things up. And I think her messaging is going to be better. I think the way she's going to approach campaigning and the way she's going to get her message out there did open the door a sliver for some optimism.
Okay.
So
good to hear.
Very glad to hear from Maria outside of that kind of buttoned up video she had. What was more fun are the UW Eau Claire CRs.
We love to hear this.
Mm-hmm.
UW CRs, first of all, we discussed this last week. This was the pre-Halloween show.
Mm-hmm.
And they had Patriots had dressed up as a ICE officer arresting a stereotypical illegal immigrant. And they got a bunch of flack for it. And that kind of has dovetailed into even more outrage. And so, but of course, they just simply did not apologize at all. And they didn't back down, which is good. They shouldn't back down in the face of this. But some other college-related news. Beloit College rejected their TPUSA chapter.
Yeah, and not just rejected it, like the college itself rejected it, but the way the people that were trying to start the chapter, just reprehensible behavior from students and folks in that community went way out of their way to insult the people involved. So feel bad for them. But Wisconsin right now covered this. It got picked up by libs of TikTok as well. And I just think that if you're a small liberal arts college right now, you're seeing declining enrollment numbers. Over the past 3 years, I think there's been 36 private liberal arts colleges, private not-for-profit colleges have shut down, which might not sound like a lot. But that's just right now. And that's not the next 10, 15 years of declining enrollment that we're seeing at the elementary and middle school level. So do you really want to turn people off to your college or university by telling conservatives or any group of people, but in this case, again, specifically conservatives, that they're not welcome on your campus?
Well, you would think the common sense answer would say, yeah, you should accept them. But the ideological gut rot that has infected pretty much every ounce of academia has just, we've gotten to levels of crazy that we really never thought were possible. And so some backstory with Beloit. Yes, this group was trying to do a TPUSA chapter on Beloit College. Long story short, the people that tried to do this, they had to go through a bunch of hoops, which every organization has to do, like a constitution, get an advisor.
Yeah, you have to have bylaws.
Bylaws, how many people, initial supporters or initial members. And they had a hang-up regarding a advisor, a faculty advisor. Everyone was turning them down, probably because it was TPUSA.
Yep.
And either they didn't want to be associated with them, or they thought that probably they weren't a very good organization, didn't want them to be on campus. So they worked pretty extensively with the administration to try to get the faculty member to join. Mm-hmm. They couldn't. So they went public on their Instagram page and said, hey, we're looking for an advisor, but here's our exec board. And lo and behold, college kids did what college kids do and were just utterly vicious to them, and pushed back pretty heavily on just a couple of college kids that want to start their own chapter. That was it. And it essentially culminated in some of the exec board members getting death threats, which, again, this just started from them wanting to start a TPUSA chapter.
Yep.
That's it. And now we have gotten to death threats. So if you don't see that that being an issue, maybe check yourself a little bit.
I mean, it's ironic that you have this one situation where Eau Claire college Republicans having a little fun did this pearl clutching indignation
About a costume.
about a costume, and those same people, when they find out that their side is sending death threats to college students,
And not even just that, too.
It's fuck them kids.
Yeah, well, and it was on top of that. It wasn't just the death threats, which the death threats, of course, were bad enough. But it is extremely tiresome. I absolutely detest that the left calls everything a Nazi. You guys have no idea. Like, if everyone's a Nazi, like no one is. Like, what is your threshold for calling someone that? And so these kids, and they are kids, are young adults, I would say. They put themselves out there as the exec board, and they all got ruthlessly mocked, called Nazis, which then eventually culminated in the death threats. Mm-hmm. And I know this is a microcosm of probably 1,000 college campuses, but you always think that those are going to happen at like the public university. Beloit College, small liberal arts school, or smaller, I should say, liberal arts school, to even happen there as well. I mean, is there any common sense or any decency on any college campus that isn't like a Liberty University or like a Hillsdale? I guess if that's where you want. I mean, Hillsdale's a good college. I'm sure they have liberal arts, I guess. Yeah. Are we just going to have to say, hey, if you don't have, if your ideology just doesn't match up, you just go to a different college?
So my hope is that the young woman that was leading the charge on this finds a better university that is more accepting of her beliefs. I hope other students at Beloit College see that and decide to find a better university that is more in tune with their beliefs. And in fact, that Beloit College goes under because of this. I have no sympathy for a small liberal arts college going under now.
Well, and if you just look at some of the comments, like, these people aren't going to change their minds. Like, for example, one of the comments on this post says, maybe re-examine what you stand for and you won't have such opposition.
Right.
So this woman that posted this, and I don't need to say her name, it's not a big deal. She read this entire post about this young woman talking how she just wanted to start a chapter, but ended up getting death threats by the end of the week. And your reaction is, well, maybe don't have those views and you won't get death threats. Like, do you understand at all what that actually means? But apparently not. And that's just kind of, that's your average Democrat, by the way, that believes that. So
100%. With that, I do want to conclude our episode by sending our condolences to Scott Fitzgerald. Great episode, by the way. Go check that out, that shutdown.
Still relevant.
Thing. Yeah.
Still relevant. We're still in the shutdown.
But his father passed away fairly recently, and he just put out a quick statement that said his father dedicated 50 years to public service and law enforcement in Wisconsin, serving as superintendent of the Wisconsin State Patrol, U.S. Marshal for the Western District of Wisconsin, Sheriff of Dodge County, and President of Badger State Sheriff's Association. His integrity, leadership, and commitment to his community set a standard for all who knew him. My brother Jeff and I are grateful for the example he set and take comfort in the lasting legacy he leaves behind. Now, what really stood out to me, I kind of reflected on the way he answered a couple of the questions that we posed to him. And, he talked about wanting to hold his campaign event.
Oh, yeah, at the firehouse.
At the firehouse in Kleiman. And because he said his folks got married there, it was a thing. And so for him to be able to talk about that with us and just before his father's passing, I think it really, I saw the real connection between his answers to those questions and this. So again, sending our condolences,
of course,
to Scott Fitzgerald. And do check out that episode as well as our interviews with David Barnum, Josh Showman, and any of our prior episodes. You can find them on Spotify, Amazon, iHeart, wherever you get your podcasts. And with that, have a great